Hey, everybody. Ooh, there we go. A little looping there. Hadn't muted the computer. All right, how's everybody doing? Let's grab the old mouse here. Who's here today? Let's see. Garen's in Vegas. Well, you still popped in. Thanks, man. Or maybe that was last night. Let's see. Freddy's got a beer. All right, let's see. Green tea, Malagafy. Hey there. Wookie. Andy's here. Let's see. Casual Noises, Helical Coil, Lemon Delight, Dr. Felix. All right. What's floating around? We're doing the rounds of hellos here. Things are going well. Hey, Doug. What BPM is this? I think it's 85. Yeah, it's 85. Let's see. What else is going on? If Andy said 98, he's lying. Andy would always say 0. It's some sort of doppelganger of Andy. Let's see. Hold on one second. There we go. Turn the metronome off. Music Smurf. Hey there. What else is floating around? Ire. Hey there. Greetings, Space Traveler. And let's see. Will Esplin. Lords of Form, hey there. And Mr. Hopkins. And the twins. Hi, girls. So, thanks for the heads up. So, what's going on today? Try to do a bit longer, a little bit more music at the beginning here. Let's see. Hang on one second. Give it a bit more gain. Just a little bit more. There we go. So, how's everybody doing? Looking forward to a jam. All right, nice. Well, I hope you heard the first 20 minutes there. What else is going on? Let's see. What are we rocking today? So it's still the same synth rig for the most part. We've got our mini Moog here. Very loud. Right, and then we've got our Korg stuff. I actually pulled the tone wheel organ out of the Korg Op 6. It sounds great. When I hear the Rick bass with the tone wheel organ, I want to break out a Rhodes and then get all, 70s proggy, Let's see, what else? This is the Wave State, doing a sort of choir thing in the background at the beginning. The sort of droney stuff at the start. Our mod wave. Doing a little ARPed synth action. Our multi-poly's been doing this horn. A couple instances of Omnisphere 1 doing a lead. Like an 80s lead. And we've got our synth-based stuff going on for when we're not using the Rick. That is an Omnisphere instance. And then the Rick. And we had some rhythm parts in here. We had this little bit. We can bring on in this bit. So, and we'll just keep those as they are. And I have my pet ficus, my virtual ficus. So that is the state of things. Let's see. If you have any questions, do tag me so I can see them. And it's an interesting layout you're using for the push. What is this? This is C# Dorian. Oh, yeah. Actually, the reason it looks different, Doug, is so if you go into your grid scale settings, you can set the root in the scale. But over here is a little light that you could turn on and off with this button. It says fixed. If you turn that on, what it does is it keeps the notes the same. So like this is a C. That's a C. It's always a C. no matter what key or mode you're in, that will the notes on the grid stay the same. And so when fixed is on, the root, when fixed is off, the root is always lower left-hand corner, no matter what root you use. Okay, so as I go through different roots, it repitches this lower left-hand corner. But what I've noticed is when you do that, if you're playing in key mostly, you play all the lit up slots a lot, and you don't really play the dark ones much, right? And I don't want to wear out. Not that I think the pads are going to wear out. I had a couple push twos for almost 10 years, and I never had a problem with the pads wearing out. But if you turn on fixed, when you change roots, the root note moves to where it actually is, right? And so I'm in C sharp, which is one up. That's why it looks different, but it's still a Dorian layout. Okay, so if you have a push, you can turn fixed on and off to prevent wear on your pads, although I never really had a problem with wear. So you got a Rick Beato out of it. Nice. I'm sure he would like it. Lords of Form. What is the Rick bass? What is the Rick bass patch? Sounds mustard. Is that a Rick Beato joke? Lords of Form. If it is, I'm not getting it. So they're talking about this sound. Sounds like a Rick bass with a Taurus under it. Is that an Omni standard bass patch, you ask? No, it is not. If you search for Synth Seeker Rick bass, those 4 words, Synth Seeker Rick bass on YouTube, I made a video last year on how I make this patch, and ones like it. So you can just follow the instructions there and make your own. It's a sampled bass with some synth stuff and a lot of processing, so it's doable. And Doug says, I'm talking about the chromatic mode versus in-key mode. This is chromatic mode, right? So this would be in-key mode. It would look like that. No possible way to play out of key notes. This way I can. Although with the jelly beans running, I can't, but it's okay. I like this. I have big hands, large fingers. I like the spacing. When it gets like this, it's not quite, it gets a little tight. I like having more room. And that is why. What's the advantage? In key, besides tightness, this is very tight for my fingers, and this has some room to breathe, right? As opposed to I can do ring finger and first finger. It's a little bit easier for me. I don't know, my hands are just used to this. Also, the intervals never change. So like this is always a fifth. Let me find a different sound, hold on. We'll do the organ. All right, so on chromatic mode, this is always a fifth, this shape, and up 2 and over 1, or over 2 and up 1. That's always a fifth, no matter where I play it, okay? In key mode, something that looks like a fifth, that is a fifth, but it's not always a fifth. Not a fifth there, right? So that's why I like my intervals to always be the same shape. That's why. Higher says, chromatic witness me. Are we in church? I should learn to use the push. You have a push too. Ire, yeah, you should. It's super fun. It just takes a few minutes every day. That's what my wife says. Hey, Sarah Tunes. Welcome aboard. Anyway, yeah, so those were the, those are the sounds we're working with today. And that first thing was 85 BPM in C sharp Dorian-ish. Let's see, there was a couple things I want to talk about, and then I'll make some more music. Hang on a second, let me, let's see, I wanted to flip over to the actual, this thing. If Ableton offends you, I'm sorry. Bear with me. I don't really do news very often, but someone asked, and I don't do studio tours that often. I do if you're on our Discord. We do this all the time. We've got a new channel on our Discord. It's for making diagrams. It's for diagramming your studio out. It's super fun. We are all so nerdy. Anyway, the studio is shaped like this now. The blue boxes are computers. There's 2 of them. The purple boxes are other pieces of gear, right? But basically the way I run the system is I run live inside a MacBook Pro with some VSTs. There's a push connected to it off to the right. That push is MIDI is going through a MIDI splitter out to some synths. All the synths I'm using right now are Corgis and Bobs. Okay. And the audio from those is going into a Motu 828 that I'm going to talk about in a second. And my mic is connected there. My headphones are running off of there. That's music making. Okay. That's the right-hand side of the picture. The left-hand side of the picture is there's a tiny baby M4 Mac Mini that's running streaming software. You can use OBS or something. I'm running Wirecast. And it's got a tiny little Motu M4 interface connected to it that takes a feed from the sound. So the video side on the left takes an audio feed from the right. All right. And it's got monitors that I'm not using because I'm using headphones right now, and all the cameras are plugged into the M4 Mini and it goes out to YouTube. That's how it works. All right. But the thing I'm excited about is this. This was announced this week. I really don't do news, okay? But this is the Motu 16A. And what has me super stoked about this is that it's got AVB built in on the back. So network audio. So like Dante, but open. I have a bunch of other interfaces that are AVB gear, and they're slowly dying. And I've been waiting for Motu to update their stuff. And this finally came out. And they used to make a distinction between AVB gear and non-AVB gear, but it looks like they're just going to keep rolling forward and put AVB in everything. So yay. That's what we're excited about. So that's all. I just wanted to show that. Like, not the one little piece of news I care about. Dante went to hell and wrote a poem. Yes, he did. Dante is not an open, but it works really well, right? Ask any stadium audio guy, right? Because most of the large stadiums use Dante, I think. You're missing out on the Draw Your Studio Meet, Meyer. You're on the Discord. Just go do it, man. Go grab Draw.io. All right, let me flip this back over to the other. Back to the hands view. All right, there we go. All right, enough of that. Enough of that noise. Oh, I wouldn't call it a studio breakdown. It was just a quick walkthrough. But that's how it's working. I like to keep it's like those Mac Minis are so cheap now that there's no reason to try and run your video ingestion capture streaming rig and on the same machine you do your music production on. Like, that's just asking for problems, right? Down that path lies madness. That's like plugging in, 50 USB devices and hoping nothing conflicts. Yeah, so keep them separate. Anyway, let's make a little more music. Again, tag me if you have a question, tag me in the chat, okay? Do like @Synth Seeker, or put 2 capital Qs or a whole bunch of capital Qs in front of your question. I'll try and get to it. All right, let's make some more noise. Let's do this. We'll leave the rhythm out. Or maybe we'll pick it up. Hang on. Should we bring the tempo up? We're at 85. I'm not going to change the drum loops out. So really quick, Doug says, I just tried chromatic mode on your launch pad. It takes a bit getting used to. Yep. Yeah. Your fingers are more spread out when you're forming chords in chromatic mode, but it works. Hey, Josh. And Dr. Felix, who else popped in? All right. So we were at 85 BPM. Let's up it a little bit. Let's go to 101. Like we're in college, freshman year, 101 tempo, the freshman tempo. And let's change all the sounds around too. Let's see. Let's not do this tone wheel organ. We started with this. We had that sort of pluck coming off the op6 before. I think I want to arpeggiate it. We'll play with the arpeggiator, but I want to change the sound. That's interesting. A little soft with a little fizz behind it. We'll try and do something a little Berlin schooly. Let's see. Let's just do a bar of that. Whoops. Hang on. Fixed length on. Here we go. Whoops. Let's undo. No, I need it to be longer than one bar because I'm going to play 3 notes, so I want it to feel like it's triplets, but not actually be triplets. Let's try that again. There we go. And let's vary. You can't see what I'm doing, but I am over on the DAW. Somebody, if you really want to see what's happening on the DAW as opposed to my hands, speak up and I'll flip it over periodically. Hang on a minute. I'm adjusting some velocities over here. There we go. Lords of Form wants the DAW. Okay, I almost always have it on hands. Today, I'll put it on the DAW for a little bit for you, because you're new. Okay? Anyone who's upset by that, just bear with me. We'll get around to it. All right. Oh, I need to be able to see the... There we go. I misheard velocities as philosophies. Well, I do mumble. Okay, so we'll take that. On the wave state, I think we used this choir earlier. Let's try something else. The wave state's great for a lot of pads. I need something a little bit more motion. Oh, I like that. All right. All right, so we're in, the pattern is 3, but we're in 4. All right. So we're doing this 4/4, 4 bars. But with the op 6 doing the sort of triplet thing, right? It's going to feel polyrhythm-y. Who is Mr. Bob Iyer? Well, obviously, it's Mr. Moog. Bob is the Mini, yes. Speaking of which, let's change it over. Let's do... so the Moog is right under the heating vent. So, hold on a second. So the Moog is right under the heating vent. And what that means... it's in tune. Thought it went out of tune. All right. We'll let the Moog do bass duty. that. Tell you what, we'll put a clip down and then we'll play with the sound until we like the way it sounds. Let's play with this. All right, now let's play with the sound. A bit choppy. But we could smear it. Let's do this. We're going to smear it out with a little delay. I'll bring it down in the mix a bit. No, I don't like that bass. There we go. All right, so we've got that pattern running, and if we vary the bass line underneath it, it should do interesting things from a harmonization perspective. Something like that. Let's play with it for a minute. Too much. There we go. A little syncopated. So the trick is, though, I'm in 4, although the pattern's in 3. So I want to be going, my hips want to go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, right? But I don't want to actually do that. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring in a drum loop that's in 4. I think I got that right. Now I need some kind of lead over it. Something else. Actually, let's go to the multi-poly and find a lead here. Pardon me, I hate to be the person who like runs through presets while everybody's listening, but nope. There we go, like an 80s analog horn. The problem with this like 3 on top of 4 is I'm not super happy with it. It was a nice experiment, but I'm not liking it. It's not making me groove. I'd say we start over. What do you say? Work with preset browsing. Start over. I'm going to start over. Yeah. So we're going to kill it with Extreme Prejudice. And it's done. Actually, let's kill everything else too. This is all the other stuff from earlier. There we go. All right. Start over. Let's do this. Let's start with our multi-poly here. I had a bunch of things in here I really found over the last few weeks. I've been going through. I like the airdrops. Yeah, this is the one. I wanted to go in this ambient direction or Berlin Schoolie direction. And this one's got a weird thing like this. Like that, it's sort of like carries out in the background, but it's like tonally not related to what I played. It's like a spooky shimmer reverb. Yes, scan presets while queuing. I did have that set up for queuing because I was going to do queuing for like drum bits, but I don't know. I think people like to see how the sausage is made. Let's see. That is just wild, that wailing in the background. All right, we're going to do this. We're going to do 8 bars, really sparse. I have to find something that inspires me before I can actually commit. Don't tell my wife I said that. If anything, the wailing in the background kind of messes with me. Let's see. Bad rhythm, Luke. We'll clean it up. Whoops. You're definitely seeing how the sausage is made today. I love that sort of, what is that in the background? It's not a shimmer reverb, but man, it sounds good. Flute, maybe? The shakuhachi sort of trill at the beginning. That's something I would go edit this patch and take out. But you know what? We'll just leave it there for now. I didn't like that. How about... We're going to do it in, like, pentatonic. We'll do it that way. Alright. I did go back to using jelly beans. I'll demonstrate in a second. I'll prove it. Hang on. Find something on the op 6. Like a dulcimer? This is moving me a bit more. Mark Demuse. Hey there. Yeah, kind of shakuhachi. Kind of little trilly flute thing there. Hey, Tracy. If anyone snuck in and I missed them. Oh, Quasar. Hey there. All right, this may screw it up. Let's try a transposition. Let's bring it up an octave. I don't know where this is going, but I kind of like it. That last one's a little weird. We'll go back to root. I'm thoroughly not pro. Pros have to make a living off of their art. I'm totally an amateur. All right. So let's try and make it a little more energetic. Record that. Now, let's see. Let's move a few things around here. pardon me while I adjust some envelopes here. Now let's try transposing it and seeing if it eats itself. Not great, but it could take some tweaking and it would be better. You know what we need is I need a sample of one of those bell trees, you know, very very like Bytor and the Snow Dog, you know. Hey, Helical Club. Alpha Rhythm. Let's take some pieces away. Now, if I redo this Rick bass, just as root over and over again, so we'll keep that at the root. And we're going to replace this Mini Moog lead with something that's not following the chords. Nah, too deedle. Hey, hang on a minute. Something improv, but fast, but not too fast. No, and definitely not that. So let's talk about licks. I've talked about licks before. My muscle memory wants me to play certain licks repeatedly, and it just bores the heck out of me. Let's try it again. Play less. Play less, Luke. Nope, that's not good either. All right. Okay, let's take a moment. Deep breath. We'll come back to this. We're in C-sharp Dorian. So I want to put a lead on this Mini Moog, but I want it to be sort of inspiring to me. That's a bit better. All right, so I'm going to noodle on a root with a melody that's not too licky. I like those intervals. All right, let's try that. Like that. Let's set the length of it to be 8 bars. All right, let's try it again. Try with a real drum beat. Hey, Gwen. All right. So now I should be able to move this around and it'll be at less risk of being dissonant. Works better for me. That'll work. Let's see. What have I missed here? Man, that dulcimer thing's got this wail in the background. That's just crazy. Was it that one or was it? No, it's this one. That one. I love that wail in the background. It's a little too much though. I'll pull it down. I'll edit the patch later. Crazy, man. All right, let's see. Oh, I'm way over 3 o'clock. Oh, well. Probably conflicting with someone. Get a real bell tree. I should, but then I'll have to hold my face near it or get another mic. Or pull another mic out of the closet. Let's see. Helical was on his way out. See you, man. Oh, you're long gone, but still. See ya. Let's see. Deedle Deedle music is your jam. Deedle Deedle music, yes. Deedle Deedle music is anything that sounds like Bach's 2-part invention, like all 16th notes. A lot of EDM music could be considered Deedle Deedle music if it didn't have a kick, right? If you take the kick away, kick and snare, right? And basically every 16th note is filled, right? It's not that much different from from an arrangement from like Bach's two-part inventions, right? Everything has every 16th note. It's got something going on, right? All right, let's see. No good, says the Wookiee. 3 attempts. That is no good. Give it up. All right, you'll give me a good price for my gear. 10 pence on the dollar. All right, Wookiee. If you, well, no, not happening. Sorry. I was trying to think of a joke, but then the joke went to like a tariff place, which went to a political place. And this is really an apolitical sort of channel. I don't want to talk about politics. So let's see. The lead sounds a bit like a Jupiter 8. That's cool, Mark. I do not have a Jupiter 8. Never. The only vintage Jupiter I've ever touched is a Juno 106. I mean, well, a Roland D10 was my first synth, right? But I mean, it's vintage now, but and I really liked the Juno 106, but the Juno 106 by itself, you have to do a lot of processing to make it actually sound good, right? The sounds are good, but raw. And so all the things you hear from the 80s that have a Juno 106 or even a Jupiter 8 on it have been processed to heck and back, right? So if you were to buy one, a vintage one, you might be disappointed, right? I mean, the collector in you might be happy, but if you're going to do music production, you'd be probably happier getting like something from Udo or one of the Roland clones, personally. Oh, hey, that's a good segue. So, all right. So if you came for jams, let me flip this back. I think we're still in DAW mode. Hold on. I'm going to go back to talking hands mode. All right, hold on. Okay. Been staring at a gray screen. Sorry about that. All right. If we go, where's the chat? There it is. All right. So if you came for jams and vibes, that part's over. But I want to talk just a little bit and talk with my hands about how you compare synths, or how I compare synths, because I've got a framework for comparing synths, regardless of who makes them or whether they're vintage or new, that I think works pretty darn well. I was just going to share that. I've shared it in a video once before, like a year and a half ago, but I don't know. Just people always ask. They're like, is this synth good? Or this synth A or synth B, which one? Right? And it's a hard answer because everybody's needs are different. It should be sort of needs driven. If you're collecting, just collect. Whatever. If you can afford it, buy it. That's easy, right? But hang on one second. Jupiter 8. Here we go. The bell tree. I think we're all good. I think we're caught up. I'm caught up on the chat. Okay. So this is how I compare synths. All right. Every synth, regardless of what it is, and this includes VSTs. Okay. VST. And VSTs win out a lot in everything except laying your hands on them. Okay. But the way I look at a synth when I want to compare synth A with synth B is I have some buckets that I dump the specs into. Okay. And I'm talking about things that are mostly objective with maybe a subjective layer of paint on them. Okay. So if I look at a synth, I say, how many input methods does this synth have? It's got a keyboard. Great. It takes MIDI in. Okay, that's 2. Does it take CV and gate? That would be 3. Cool. And maybe there's some other method, right? But those are the 3 big ones, right? Keys, MIDI, gate, right? So you sort of look, you can compare 2 synths in that context. Like this synth has just a keyboard. This synth has no keyboard, but it's got MIDI. And this synth has keyboard and MIDI and CV and gate. Right. So those are objective measures. So you can compare synths looking at how many of those sort of input methods does it have. Now, subjectively, you may prefer using one of those 3. Some people are like, I'm totally into CV and gate because I've got a big modular. And so any synth I have, if it's got CV and gate inputs, that's more valuable to me. Right. I use MIDI. Right. So everything's got to be MIDI compatible. If you offer me a vintage synth and it doesn't do MIDI, I don't want it. Right. So that's one sort of bucket inputs. Right. The next sort of bucket I look at is wave shapes. sound source. Not sound sources is too specific. It's wave shapes. Like timbre, when the sound comes through the air to your ear, it's a complex waveform, right? And it's changing over time. That's what makes synthesizers awesome. They make waveforms. They can be simple or complex, and they can change over time. So any given synth has, like if you were to say wallpaper a room in the sounds a synthesizer makes, a mini Moog is about the size of a closet, right? But like a Hydrasynth is the size of, a big ballroom, right? And like a VST potentially could be like the size of wallpapering a gymnasium, right? Some synths have a huge surface area, or like pigments, for example. There's, how many different kinds of synthesis does pigments have? And there's a lot of overlap, like, wavetables and wave folding, right? If you scan through a wavetable, or if you take a sine wave and you run it through, you modulate it with a wave folder, those are very similar timbres, can be very similar timbres, right? So there's a lot of overlap, but you can look at any two synths and sort of get an estimate objectively of how much surface area of sound timbres will this synth support, right? And if that's valuable to you, if it's like for me, a mini Moog has a really relatively narrow surface area for sounds. But that's okay. There are other things that added value to it for me. And the sounds it does make, I really enjoy, right? A DX7, like vintage, a DX7 has a different sort of surface area of sounds, right? It's also arguably relatively small compared to modern synths. But I also don't like the sort of textures it tends to gravitate towards. The things that are easy to obtain on a DX7, I don't like those sounds, right? So that has less value for me subjectively, but objectively, I can look at two synths and compare like how big is the map of sounds that this synth makes, right? So I sort of look at that. Hey, I sing the Body Electric. And G. Hargle, hey man. The bass, if you search for every time, search for Synth Seeker Rick bass on YouTube. I've got a video on how to make it. It goes into guns. I saw it. Sorry. Anyway, there's this other bucket. So this is like, so things that are inputs, like how do I control the thing? And then what kind of sounds, what's the map of sounds it can make, right? And then there's another bucket that I call shapers. Okay. Shapers are things that can be used to further expand the map of sounds, things to manipulate it. So that's like wave folders, effects, mutators. I'm throwing out things from various synths, right? Filters. Filters are sort of shapers. Reverb is a shaper. Delay, any inbuilt effects, ring mod, cross modulation, that kind of stuff. Well, cross mod is starting to get into synthesis methods. It's a blurry line. That's fine. You can compare objectively, like how many options for shaping does synth A have versus synth B? So like a mini Moog, it has a filter, right? And it's got an overload circuit. You could feed it back on itself, right? That's pretty low count if you're objectively counting. Not a huge number of shapers in a mini Moog. The ones that are there are really nice. I like that filter, right? Again, if I just use the other arbitrary example, use a Hydrasynth or heck, you could say VCV rack if you're in the box, right? They have, orders of magnitude more shapers. And really, you can look at that objectively and know, okay, this has way more than this one. And then subjectively, you can look at the shapers and go, do I like these shapers? Like this synth offers 6 kinds of distortion. And it's like, I don't like any of those kinds of distortion. They subjectively to me sound like poo, right? I don't like those. But it allows you to put a handle on things and objectively do some objective comparisons upon which then you can lay your subjective sort of feel. And then lastly, modulators. Like how many modulation sources and modulation destinations does a synth have? More is more. More is not better. More is more options. Some people say more options is not so good, right? It's overwhelming. I don't know. I like having a lot of modulation options. But if we go back to the Mini Moog, not many modulation options on the Mini Moog, but the ones that are there are pretty useful, are good core useful ones, not like esoteric weird edge cases. But they're also really simple to wrap your head around, and they're all available like manually, digitally, like with your digits. They're available immediately on the panel, as opposed to having to dig through a mod matrix, right? I think Scott's the Scott Synth person, Scott's Synth stuff. Last night I saw a video come across my feed from him about mod matrices, and he gives this great description of mod matrices and why they're awesome. And I agree, mod matrices are awesome matrices. I should use the right word. But unless they're really easy to understand and manipulate, they can be a pain, right? So for example, the Roland Xenology VST synth has a huge mod matrix in it, but it's buried and it's really difficult to get to. It's not fun, right? Something like, I don't know what had a great modulation system. Any synth that's got a button you can press to say, okay, I've tapped the mod button, now jiggle a knob, and it says, okay, that's the source you want. Okay, now tap the other mod button and now jiggle a destination, and you turn that knob and it just does that mapping for you. That's sweet. The Moog 1 had something like that. I think the sequential synths do something like that. And I'm pretty sure like the Hyder synth, that's getting more ubiquitous. Like it's really common because it's the problem of how to allow a human to assign mod matrix source and destinations, and then a control parameter as well, is starting to be better understood. Let's see. Hang on, let me look. Scan for questions. If you have a question for me, do tag me or stick a capital Q or 2 in front of your question. Otherwise, I may miss it. Shenanigans dug out the old Wavestation SR today. Didn't I see that on wasn't that on like Bad Gear last Friday or something like that? All right. If you really liked modulation options, you'd be deeper into modular. People don't seem to realize, I'll say this once. I got into modular my kid was 7 or 8, right? And he's 24 now, right? So Dopefer was new. The A100 was like a new standard when I got into modular. Okay. So it was like maths had just come out. So I got into modular back then, and it consumed me for like 10 years. It's all I spent any money on. I spent way too much money on modular, and then I escaped. So I like modular, don't get me wrong, but if I seem as though I am downplaying modular, it's because I've been there, and I'm done with that. Okay. I still have a little bit over there in the corner, and that's it. Anyway, all right. Nerdiness asserted. Let's see. Sounds like poo is a vital criterion. Yes. Jeff Hopkins was on earlier with his little girls, and so we're trying to be not profane today. Let's see. Let me go through the scan. Let's see. Doug says, if you had to choose one sequential Oberheim synth, what would it be? Trigon 6 or OBX8? I don't like either of those, actually. I played the Trigon 6 at NobCon 11, I think. And I didn't like it. And the OBX8, I have things that do that already. So, and I'm not interested in collecting them. So I don't know, Doug, you'll have to ask someone else on that one. I thought the Trigon, I didn't think it sounded bad. It didn't strike me as distinctly new compared to what I already have. Right. So, yeah. I have a high respect for Dave Smith, right? Rest his soul. But I don't have the awe. I don't worship him the way a lot of people do. He's awesome. And he made my hobby, but I have a profit and I'm happy with it, and that's fine. I don't need any more. So Oh, I know, Tracy. I didn't think you were disputing. I just had to, for the sake of all the other ears listening. I so seldom talk about modular these days. I thought I'd give the backstory of why I don't really talk about modular that much. That's all. Not you. Don't worry. Jeff says profanity is fine. Well, I know, but I might meet them one day. I do have relatives in Florida, Jeff. It's entirely possible that we'll bump into each other. I don't want to be known. Hey, you're that guy who says the bad words. Like, yeah, okay, no. My log of high sets the track I'm going through, man. Okay, cool. All right. Anyway, so yeah, so that's all I wanted to share. I was like saying, I have this framework I use for comparing synths that works for me, right? So you objectively look at the different types of these buckets, right? How does it get sound in? What's the sort of map of waves that it can make, timbres it can make? What is the functionality and utility around manipulating those timbres? And then what are your modulation options, right? And there's another bucket around players. Like, so if you like sequencers, arpeggiators, those are players, right? Those are nice to have those built in. So like the multi-poly has 4 layers, each with its own arpeggiator each with its own sequencer, right? And then a global arpeggiator, which is nice, but if the bucket is rusty and has holes, you end up with Eurorack. Let's see. Here, I'll show you guys the Eurorack. Hang on one second. Let's see if I can point the camera at it. I'm going to move. We're going to do live camera. Okay, hold on. Here we go. Ready? Here we go. That is all the Eurorack that remains. And then there's a closet that has a whole bunch of modules in it. So there we go. So what are we looking at there? That is I don't know if you can see the whole thing. There we go. So that's a Moog matriarch with a chassis on the back. And basically that is a project that is ongoing. I will get around to putting that thing back together. So yeah, I'm just not buying any more stuff as far as I can manage it. Right. Anyway, so that's that. What time is it? 3:30. So my wife and I are trying to eat better and exercise more. And one of the things we've committed to doing is only getting takeout once a week. And tonight's takeout night. So as soon as I'm done here, we're going to go get some pizza. So the question is where? There's the Greek pizza joint down the street that we both like. But then there's an Italian, very different crusts, right? The Greek pizza is very light and airy crust, very crispy, thin. Not too thin, but very crispy. Right? A lot of butter, I think, in the dough. It all bakes out and leaves this sort of like, what is that stuff? Aerogel. So like the Greek pizza crust is like an aerogel. It's super light, right? And it's an incredible insulator. And then the Italian places around the corner in the other direction, they have the incredibly dense, super heavy glutinous crust. And we both like both, but we have to make a decision about what we want to do. The Italian place is, everyone there's, it's very soup Nazi. They're grumpy all the time and they only take cash. And if you don't follow the protocol that they don't, explain to you, you have to learn by making mistakes, and they tell you what mistakes you broke by yelling at you. That's the Italian joint. And then the Greek place is not as aggressively angry, but also like, we're busy making pizzas. Don't screw up the line, or don't hold up the line. Don't, have your credit card ready, that kind of stuff. So, and then there's always the fallback of Domino's, which is when we're really lazy, or when it's raining, but the weather's relatively nice now. So I'll probably be on the road to get some pizza in a little bit. Let's see. Needs a Star Lab and a Magneto. Jeff, I do all of my effects processing in the box, man. So those are too expensive. Let's see. Greek. I see one vote for Greek, another one for Italian. Okay. Systemize the criteria and build a decision matrix, come up with a solution for pizza. Yes. Goes into cons. Is your matriarch noisy on the outputs? Well, I mean, no noisier than any of my other synths. So The delay can be very noisy if you have the time turned cranked up really high. Like the delay is inherently noisy. Like that's the way bucket brigades are. Gazinigons, gunzinigons. Dominoes is never the answer. I know, Ire, but like if it's raining or there's a foot of snow, right? Well, that's not true either. I will actually not order takeout delivery when it's got a lot of snow or it's really, really nasty out because I feel bad for the delivery people. But let's see. Italian vintage synths are awesome. So I'm not a big vintage guy because I'm terrible at repairing things. So anyway, all right. Someone have some problem. You got some humming problems. I'm sorry, dude. Well, good luck with that. Domino's is just convenient sometimes. And honestly, my wife doesn't actually eat the pizza from Domino's. She just orders those garlic bread knots and the cinnamon twists things. She just wants carbs. Is there a pizza delay module? I'm sure there is. Anyway, okay. Thank you all for hanging out. Hope this was entertaining. If not, if it didn't put you to sleep. And I'll be back next Sunday. I'll see some of you in the Discord. I'll see some of you around other people's streams this week. That's always fun. And drop me a note if you have questions. I don't mind taking questions over, comments or email or whatever. It's all a good thing. You guys have a great night. I got to order some grub.